Hey, what's up? I'm Gerard. So I'm a screenwriter, and people have been telling me my whole life I'm very opinionated. So I figured, hey, let me give you my opinion about whatever story I've watched, whatever story I like or not like, anime, movies, TV, sitcoms, whatever. Um, my whole thing is why not just add my voice to the conversation? So that's what I'm doing with this. And this is my thoughts on the story pod. So really, I will do some books at some point. And I've been thinking about one or two that I've been listening to. They're like series that I might get into with you. But I just watched Project Hail Mary. It's like number two. It probably was number one for a minute. On Amazon Prime. I love a good stream. So I did that, watched it, and it is number two for a reason. It is very good. I enjoyed every bit of it. But one thing I will say about my analysis today is I am definitely going to spoil some stuff. So if you haven't seen it, go see it because hey, it's on Amazon Prime. All you got to do is watch a little ad and then you can see it. So why not? So what I am doing now is I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing on IMDb because I want to read you the log line and then we'll go from there. So the story of Project Hail Mary. This is what they put down. This is a science teacher wakes up alone in a spaceship as his memory returns. He uncovers a mission to stop a mysterious substance killing Earth's sun and realizes that an unexpected friendship may be the key. Um, and so, like I said, I'm spoiling this whole thing. The unexpected friendship, which they don't tell you, is basically he meets an alien. Um, so the whole thing is, I mean, this to me is more of a story about it's very similar to it's not, but it kind of gives you that Castaway vibe. A man alone trying to survive, listening to his own thoughts, but instead of keeping him man alone and figuring out, or like The Martian, they put another character in there, and I think that other character actually does great work for the story. Full disclosure, I knew that this was a book that came out and then they made it into a movie. I did not read the book or listen to the audio book. I thought about it for a little bit and I decided against it because whenever I see book promotion for a movie that's eventually coming out, my question then becomes, why read the book? Now, I probably will think about doing the audiobook for this now because I want to see what the differences are between the two, and see what they left out of the movie that they couldn't fit in. This was a very long movie. This was 2.5 hours. And I did it. Full disclosure, I did not do it completely full attention. I just couldn't. It's too long. I got kids. I got a life. I got a wife. I can't just sit around and just spend 2.5 hours straight doing anything in my life. The only thing I do for 2.5 hours straight is probably sleep. And sometimes it is just 2.5 hours, and something wakes me up, and I got to go fix or do something. So, um, that said, my whole thing is they start the movie off to me amazing. So, like you get the feeling of, yo, who is this guy? You know you're in space now, talking to an AI. What the heck happened? And you really watch. They do a really good job of allowing you to see the character. His name's Grace. Figure out what is happening to him, and he has no clue what's happening. And you could tell, like, he's very he's very confused, and you kind of get backstory as you go along forward. So like they make it feel like as the story starts, you have no idea what's going on, and then they give you backstory maybe 20 minutes in, and you're like, oh, okay, there is a problem on Earth that Ryan Gosling's character Grace has to solve. And so he's in the spaceship alone. You find out that the crew that went with him has now passed, and he's literally on a ship by himself, 11 years away from home, and doesn't know and can't get back. And so he's now trying to figure out like what's going on, how did he get here, all this other stuff. And so he kind of like goes through this process in the first act of like figuring out, okay, I'm in a ship. What should I do? I can't go home. Oh, that's right. I need to figure out this problem. And so this is not a spoiler, but they find out. I mean, I already spoiled it a couple times, but I told you, go watch it. Um, they find out that the earth is dying, right? So at the end of the day, they're trying to figure out how to save the earth. And there's some form of, well, not the earth is dying. The sun is going to dim. There's uh, a substance or a bacteria, whatever, some cells that hyper reproduce, and they basically eat energy off of stars, which dims the energy of the star, which would affect the Earth by, like they say, 15 degrees. It would cause basically some form of apocalypse because 50% of the sources in the world would die. And in my mind, maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, I would agree with that. But today, I'm like, bro, we probably raised the temperature of the Earth a couple degrees. So a little bit of cooling probably is helping us. Now, drastically, is that good? No, probably not. But that was my initial thought. I was like, I don't know if you had summer yet. You know what I'm saying? The guy and Andy Weir did a great job and with the baseline story and Drew Goddard. I'm looking at their names right now. That's the only way I would have known them. But I think that they did a really good job of creating and building up the stakes of this story. So they give you like, hey, look, this is what will happen if we don't solve this problem. It will not destroy the earth, but we will destroy the earth because we will destroy each other because of this catastrophe. Because food shortages, and war essentially will happen. So you get very quickly like, okay, this is serious. And he is a teacher. They show you like, oh, this is what's happening. And so once you get through Act One and he realizes where he is and what's happening and the actual risk in the backstory, and they show you what's happening, and he becomes valuable to the team of the governmental research, world government research people, you begin to understand like, okay, he's on a journey in the past to be relevant and beneficial to his team. And in the future, you see like, okay, he's coming to grips with that. He's on a spaceship and he's got to figure out how to solve this problem on the spaceship, because you find out quickly like he is the guy who was the leading authority on this issue. Um, and he becomes important to the group. So long and short, something happens where he realizes that he is not at that planet alone. He's sitting he's sitting in a spaceship. He sees another spaceship. Something gets thrown at him. He eventually realizes like, oh, I'm not here alone. And he gets this thing. He eventually figures out like, oh, there's another being here. And so he goes in a spacesuit and realizes that there's another being there, and that being is basically a rock. Now, one of the things that I thought was a great reveal that they never even pointed out, which I love that they never really pointed it out, because it makes you think. So in the beginning of the movie, he's like he became a teacher and got exiled because he felt like there was that it was a possibility that not every form of life started with water. And so he goes and stands on it, and because of the conflict, he becomes immature, and then it ruins his life. Essentially, he becomes a teacher, a poor teacher at that, because he's riding a bike to work. You find that out. I don't know why it matters, but teachers make enough money to buy a car. That said, um, he gets the opportunity to research this other life form, and he finds out like, oh, okay, well, this life form itself is made out of water, and it disappoints him, like the life form that's eating the sun. So he finds out like, oh, okay, it is, and it depresses him for whatever reason. But when he meets the alien, which is basically a living rock, if you will. I told you, go see the movie. I'm spoiled. Stop now, go watch it. Come back in 2.5 hours. And we'll talk. But he meets the rock, and they never say it in the movie, but it's like the one thing that like he said, the script says like the only original thought I ever had in science is not true or not right. I did not discover that. And so because he finds a water-based carbon life form. So essentially he meets this rock, and they never make mention of the fact that their atmospheres will kill each other. But like, they make mention of the fact that if they could never live with each other in their own planets, but this is his close, the really good friend of his. And so he discovers that rock is not made of water. So I just thought that was cool. Now the crazy part is, or I thought was a really nice piece to add, is the rock doesn't have a face. The rock doesn't have a mouth. So it doesn't formulate words in the way that we formulate words. It makes sounds like coos and things of that nature. It's very much like an echolocation type of communication that it does. And so it's interesting. And so he finds an AI to basically store all his words. They learn how to communicate with each other because he has a computer that does all of that work for him. So he'll say, what is this? And then they eventually started figuring out words to say for his sounds. And then the rock on the other end just understood his language, figured it out faster, which I thought was crazy, like that rock was so smart. And he was an engineer, blah, blah, blah. So The Rock himself is by himself because his crew died on the way. And so that's basically it. So that now we're into like the end of, if it was a 5 act structure, this is probably the end of act 2, and then we're into act 3. And act 3 to me is really cool because you get the buildup of, and with everything you're getting the crescendo up, right, with act 3 in this case. Or you could say this is the first, we're doing the higher rise in act 2, if depending on if you want to do 3 act structure. So as we're getting this bigger rise, you see them become friends with each other and get to know each other, and it changes the whole movie because you get this levity, you get this easiness that goes along with his discovery or the problem solving that they have to make together. And so he goes from first trying to discover this, what the problem is and why this one star is unique, to I met an alien and I got to learn how to interact with this alien so that we can work together. And so once they are able to work together, then they work together. And so you get this nice levity of them being friends. Um, and I love that part. Like, I thought it was great that they did that, and I really, like, as they were doing the story, like in my mind I was like, man, it would be so dope if he went home with Grace, or Grace went home with him. Like, that's what I was thinking. Like, they just seem like they probably can't, but it would be great if they could, because they're friends. You want them to still be friends, as you're watching it. And so you also, at the same time, you're getting this backstory, and you see the progressive development, or the progressive importance of Grace as it relates to Project Hail Mary, where he now has done greater research. He understands how they reproduce. He understands how to create energy from them, and they're making the preparations for Project Hail Mary, where they're going to send 3 astronauts out into space on a one-way ticket out there, and they know that it's a one-way ticket, so they're on the way out. And they're making jokes about how they would kill themselves after it's over. So that's that piece. um and so as you're going on, you start to see, like, oh, okay, they're about to solve this problem. You can tell that the alien's name is Rocky, so you can tell that Rocky and Grace are going to figure out how to solve this problem, and they're progressing forward in the right way. So you get to the peak of, and this is the part where I just felt like, personally, I hate choices like this, because it feels like, logically, even if you would do this, you wouldn't do this. Like, so they realize like okay, we need to get a sample, so they realize, like, the big scientific discovery is, on the planet that is the closest to this star that they've traveled to figure out why this one is unique and not dying like the rest of them, is they realize that it's probably life on that planet, and it is probably killing the organism that's going around eating stars. It's just stopping it. So what they realize they need to do is they need to go grab a sample. So they're about to go grab a sample or whatever, and they train or whatever to do that piece. And as they're about to do that piece, or as they're doing it, like, Grace, after a lot of training to be a better pilot, all this stuff, he has to go out and pull out the thing that collects the sample, um, because his ship is not graded to be able to go enter an atmosphere again. So he has to go this route or he'll die. Like, they have to drop down and grab a sample and pull the sample grabbing thing back to the ship. You saw it. So once he pulls it back to the ship, that part right there, that bothered me, because I'm like, in my mind, yes, if we did this once and I'm about to fail, I would like to keep pushing. But in that moment, Rocky says to him, like, yo, man, stop. Bad things are happening. Get back in the ship. We can do this again. And in essence, they could. Like, they never, like, he didn't have enough fuel to get home, but he had fuel, like, to do that test again. And Rocky could have made the thing that they dropped down again. And so, like, in the moment where things are not going right, they don't, like, Grace just decides to keep going when things are getting worse. And to me, I always am a proponent of, like, bro, in those types of moments, it's okay to not, you know what I'm saying? Like, just pull out. Like, well, not pull out, but, like, that's a whole nother. I'm sorry. Pause. Well, not pause, because the point I'm making is, I'm childish. The point I'm making is, in that moment, all Ryan Gosling character had to do was say, all right, I failed. We'll hit it next time. Cool. Let me just, I just tripped, or XYZ. Or maybe I can get to a more stable location. So he does all of this, and he actually like he fails basically, and he can't get his stuff together. Like he eventually, well, he fails in the beginning, and eventually he grabs the sample thing and he pulls it back. The problem is the ship is too close to orbit and it's pulling them in, and he needs to stop it from pulling them in, and so he has to go through this process, which turns out to be bad. And it's the whole movie. We got to create conflict situation, right? Like you got to have, oh no, bad things are happening moment. Because we got to have a low so that we can build it back up to a high again, right? And so for me, this is probably where I would say we're in the Act 3 area of the 5 act structure where we've had the massive conflict. And so the part that bothered me was, and I know that they got to do it, but like Rocky essentially saves their lives. Well, he kind of gets the ship going after the ship gets damaged, but long and short, Rocky realizes that that Grace is unconscious, and because Grace is unconscious, he's got to break through his protection to save Grace, to get him to the medical bay. But it's at the cost of his own health to do it, right? So Grace goes. Grace wakes up in the medical bay. He's obviously had a concussion, was unconscious at some point, and he's bruised up. And he sees, he kind of looks back like, "Where's Rocky?" And he notices all Rocky's blood, which is crazy because you never thought a rock could bleed, but a rock can bleed in this movie. And so basically, you see the pathway of Rocky getting back to his habitat within Grace's ship that is made by some form of thing that couldn't grow on Earth, but it grows there. So Rocky is not moving, and as an audience, you got to think Rocky's dead. Like maybe he made it back, but not in enough time. He's just still, and you're thinking that he's dead, and you're hoping that he's not dead. But you think, I mean, it's Hollywood. He's probably dead. It's cool. And then you're thinking like, okay, well, Ryan Gosling got what he needed from the Rock. It's cool if the Rock dies. I mean, a lot of times we make these movies where as long as the hero's good, so what about the backup character? The difference is sometimes the backup character is black, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we let Toby die," but it was such a beautiful moment. Yeah, you basically are telling your audience it's okay if side characters die, and you only make certain people side characters. But that's not what this did. Well, at that point, you think it's what it's going to do. So you sit there, you're listening, you're watching, and you watch him discover and see what needs to happen. For the testing that he did with the sample. So you realize what he did wasn't in vain. He has a sample that's killing the item or whatever. And so at that point to me, I'm like, oh, okay, well, we got what we needed. And now uh it's cool. Like everything's gonna be fine. He's achieved his objective. And at the same time that you see this, you get the backstory of the fact that he feels relevant in his own life again back in the past. Like he feels like, oh, okay, I've helped save the world. The mission is going well. We're going to make it. And people are about to leave or whatever. And so at a certain point, and excuse me if I'm wrong a little bit, I think I may have my timing on this might be off, but long and short, he's basically gotten to the point where he's discovered for himself, like, the past part of his life is what it will be. What at that point in the past, he realizes like, okay, I have a new world, a new life I'm gonna live. I've been relevant. I'm actually interested in the woman who pulled me out of my mundane life, and he's like about to, like, he's asking her, what are you about to do for the next 20 years or whatever, because he wants to, you know what I'm saying. It seems like that's where they're leading it from the past, and they like almost like, I don't know if it was Andy Weir or if it was the guy who actually wrote the script for this, and maybe Andy Weir wrote the script. I don't know. Whoever made the screenplay, I don't know if they decided to tell that past story as a complete story and then work on the future story, and then they just cut it up, no, knowing that they were going to cut it up and they worked on the outline or that story like that. Because if you look at the first story, is a very traditional science, disgraced scientist becomes relevant again and changes his life, falls in love type of story. That they give you that, right? Up until a certain point. But you get that kind of element of, oh yeah, he's a disgraced scientist that's really a nice guy. He discovers some stuff. He meets new people. He becomes relevant. He's like, that's what you get. And so in the future story, you get very much of I'm lost. I don't know how I got here type of deal. And I need to do a job and survive. And I make an unlikely friend along the way. 2 separate movies. But so they put these 2 movies on top of each other, and it creates a really nice effect because you're rooting for a future in the past version of him, you're rooting for a future that you know he'll never have, right? You know he's not going to fall in love. You know he's not going to become relevant, so socially, because we know he's on a spaceship in the future. Um, and that was 11 years ago. Like, that's the other part that you realize, like, oh, he was on a space. They did 11 light year travel, so now he's somewhere else. Um, but you realize in that past where he's discovering who he, that situation happens. And I'll, like I say, please, at this point, if you haven't gone to watch the movie and you're this far deep into the video, it's your own fault now, because I'm definitely giving you the key points now. So when they do the when they do the flashback into the fact that because you're like, well, we know that he's on the ship, but why is he on the ship? Because they had astronauts, they had all this. How did he get there? So you watch, um, you watch him having this conversation with the program manager, if you will, and a giant explosion happens, kills all the scientists, every single one of them. And so because all the scientists are dead, now everyone's trying to figure out, and by everyone, it's really Grace, is trying to figure out what are they going to do next to figure out this problem, who's a scientist that's going to go, and all this other stuff. And so Grace is sitting there like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be. I'm not the guy. I'm not safe. I'm not. I mean, I'm not. I don't feel comfortable doing this. I'm not brave. I'm a coward. I do not want to do this. And I have to say, Sandra Hula, she did a great job. Very, very good playing a version of a straight man to Grace's or Ryan Gosling's comedic character. Really, really good. Especially the guy who played Carl. I think that's James. I don't know who that guy is. Oh, Leon. Okay, Leon Boyce. Like, to me, I think he did a really good job of being a straight man as well. So you have Ryan Gosling's character, who is very clearly the comedic voice in the room all the time, until he's on the spaceship. But when he's in the past, he's very much the comedic voice in the room. And so because of that, it's nice to see other people play good straight men, which is like the person who is not funny that you can bounce your comedy off of. So I thought that they did a really good job at doing that. So long and short, you realize in the script or in the story that in the past they have to force Grace onto the ship, and they're going to induce a coma. So he tries to run. Like, I love the fact that they actually let him run away and get away to some degree. Obviously, he can't get out of the facility, but he gets far enough away that you can tell that he's serious, that he does not want to do it. He has not agreed in any way, and he is not complicit in this process of him sending him out to space to die, essentially. So because you got to think about it, I'm going in a coma for 11 years. I'm getting on a spaceship. I'm gonna wake up, and 10 years of my life have passed that I can't get back. When I get where I'm going, because I was in a coma, I'm going to do some research to save a planet which I love that I'm never going to go back and see again. Like, even if you have nothing and no one, you still don't want that to be the case, because he was still a good teacher and dedicated teacher. But that was the case. So I love the fact that they were like, the main character says, I know you feel like I'm betraying, like Sandra Hula says, um, I know you feel like I'm betraying you and I hate you, but it's quite the opposite. I actually believe in you. Obviously, you got to believe in someone to force them to go and die for you to save the planet, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was a really nice, heartfelt moment where she's almost emotionlessly saying, "Hey, this is this is why I'm doing this." Um, And so I really thought that part was dope, that they gave him that moment of, he got the honesty, but he didn't care about the honesty, and he forced himself to run away anyway. I thought that was dope. And I think that when we do storytelling, it's nice to give people, hey, I gave you your moment. I gave you the moment of truth that you needed, but it did not matter. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, you told me the truth. You told me you believe in me, but that doesn't matter. I don't want to do this. Like, we're people. Like, not every person wants to do the thing that you tell them that they are great to do, because it cost them something. And I thought that was great that they did that. Um, And I thought that that conclusion, if they were to have made, and obviously you would have need more weight and more backstory to do it this way, but even if they had just made the backstory the main movie, it would have been good. Like it would have been amazing still. Like that was still a good story. Just to put him on the spaceship and send him. And you get to see him wake up like, where am I? What am and and then if it ended there and we got another movie of him being in space, I think it would still been cool. Now, I think that it would the numbers wouldn't have been as good. I think from a business standpoint, making the long movie is better than making two short ones. Because even if you cut it in half, we're still at hour 15 for both of them, which is still feature length. You know what I'm saying? Like we're still close. I mean, what is it? 90 minutes that makes it a feature. So we're 15 minutes short on both, and then you can figure out give both of them 15 minutes of each. Like each movie has 15 the same 15 minutes in it in different spots. Like that would work. But to me, like I thought that they did a really good job with the backstory version. And like I said, it's number two for a reason on Amazon. And I think when we get to the climax, so like he realizes what's happening, and then you get the moment of Rocky waking up, and you realize like, oh snap, your boy, the bad character, the side character, his friend is not dead. Great, amazing. And so they, they do what they got to do. They say their goodbyes, and they get on their ships because Rocky then decides like at a certain point way earlier in the movie, and I skipped over this, but he realizes earlier like, yo, I'm gonna give you, um, I'll give you some fuel, the astrophase, to get you to the next place, to get you back home. And it's even going to take him less time. Like it's going to take him 4 years instead of um freaking 11 that it was going to take. So he's on a ship, everything's cool. He's about to get in his hibernation chamber, and he realizes that there was a what was it? There was a breach, or the object had gotten out of the container, and was on his way. Like it was starting to contaminate his ship. This is right before he goes to sleep. So he fixes the problem, and he realizes like at this point, and where this is the point where I would say we've come down. We're on act. I would say we're kind of in that act four, in part of act four at this point. Um, yeah, I think we got to start thinking in the five act structure. Like simply when you're writing, the three act structure makes sense. You got to start and you got this big old middle and you got an end. But really, when it comes down to it, you got to think in the five act structure, because there's certain parts of the second act that you need to break up mentally so that you understand how the rise and fall is going to go before you get to your resolution phase. So at this point in act four, you're thinking to yourself like, okay, typical Hollywood form, he's going to cry and mourn his friend who, like, he realizes at that point, like, if it got out of its containment zone, with this material that Rocky gave me, then it's definitely getting out of Rocky's ship because it's completely made of this item, and Rocky is going to die the way his crewmates died, and that's what it's going to be. So long and short, he's sitting there like, okay, I got to make a choice now. Do I go back to Earth like I want to, or do I save my friend? And so he does this final diary message that's been doing this whole time, kind of explaining what's going to happen. And he sends probes back home, which is the one moment, like for me, I was like, if I was in his shoes, am I going home or am I saving Rocky? And I'm thinking maybe I won't need to save him, so I could be out there for nothing and die, or I could go home and know I'm going to go home. But what essentially happens is he makes a choice, which I'm glad he made, because I'm a terrible person apparently. And I'm thinking like they made this Rock character so that they didn't have to have a face to get rid of, which actually makes it sad because they be killing black people so quick, and then they save a Rock alien. All right, sorry. So he goes to, like, he makes it a choice to go save Rocky. He sends the probes out. He smiles. He kind of concludes he makes peace with his past and sends it out. And he goes over to save Rocky. And he says in a moment, I can either go to Earth or I can go save my friend. I can't do both. So he goes and saves Rocky. He knocks on the door. Rocky comes, and they kind of like have this moment of, you realize like, oh, he saved Rocky. And so they flash forward to sometime in the future. And this, to be honest with you, I thought this part was dope because we're in Act 5 now, and Act 5 is maybe 5 minutes of a movie at that point. So Grace wakes up in a house in the future. and you realize like, oh, this man is living a cool life. Except why is his spaceship thing here? Oh, he must be. Is he? Where is he? Because this is a house. How was he living here? Um, and so he walks out, and it's Rocky at the door, and wearing a more nice spaceship thing, like spacesuit thing. I guess I still don't understand how Rocky was breathing because he was just making glorified bags, if you will, like airtight bags. Is this man not? He doesn't need oxygen. Do they not need any form of atmosphere? Like what makes Rocky live, not be able to live? Okay, that maybe it's in the book, but that was the one thing that kind of confused. Like I liked it, but it's like because you needed that separation. I think that element made it work. Um, but that was something that I thought was interesting. In that space, that space. So, um, I think that when it comes down to it, man, this is a longer video than I thought it would be. But long and short, you get to see the end of the video, and I thought it was dope that he still got to be himself. Like he ends up teaching the alien kids, in this different spot, and he loved it. And Rocky's like, we can send you home. And he's like, let me think about it. And he's like trying to decide if he's going to go back or not, which I think is dope. Like this man found a group of aliens that he thought would have existed. Now he's living among them. And proven that the one thing that he stuck his hat on is validated. So, at the end of the day, when you think about a character getting just desserts in a positive way, Grace gets everything that he wants, except for, I guess, true love. Cause, he obviously didn't get true love because he can't, that's a whole nother thing. But he gets true friendship. So you could say he got true love. He got the one thing he didn't have was friendship and companionship, and he got that. So yeah, you could say he got everything. It just had to ruin his life for him to get it. But yeah, that's basically what I thought about it. And I probably have done my process in a different way, but I think I like this format better. I think I like talking about the 3 act structure or the 5 act structure this way in this story. I think that it for this one it works. But yeah, I think that it was a good story. I think they did a really good job. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about a lot of unoriginal IP being made into these blockbuster films. Like this was a really good story. And at the end of the day, if we're after a good story, we're after a good story. Like, but how do you feel about the fact that this wasn't an original idea that was made into a screenplay? This was a book that was adapted into a screenplay. And maybe the guy who wrote the book was thinking movie the whole time and had to make the book to justify the movie. You know what I mean? Like you never know. But that said, I'm curious about you guys' thoughts about this. What do you think about the 5 act structure? Did you like the flashback structure? Would you have done it differently? Would you have preferred it to be fully chronological? Did you really feel like it was memories that he was remembering? Because it didn't seem like it to me. But what did you feel about it, and what did you think about Rocky? So, um, that's what I thought about this movie, man. I really liked it. Um, and when I hate gimmicks, man. I hate a gimmicks, and whenever I think a story's going to be a gimmick, I always walk away. Probably too quickly sometimes, but here we are nonetheless. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and if you made it this far, you obviously need to subscribe. You're here now. You know what I'm saying? We'll keep doing these, and I'll love to hear your thoughts. So I'll catch you on the next video.